The envelope trembled in Michael Thompson's hands as he sat alone in his study, the DNA test results staring back at him like a death sentence. Not a match. The words blurred as tears filled his eyes. Clara wasn't his daughter. 28 years of bedtime stories, scraped knees, graduation celebrations, all built on a foundation of lies. But this was just the beginning. Michael had always believed his life was blessed. At 57, he had everything a man could want. A successful import-export business, a beautiful home in the suburbs, and what he thought was a loving family. His wife Linda, still stunning at 52, had been his college sweetheart. They'd married young, and Clara had come along shortly after. Then Melissa 4 years later, and finally Emma, their surprise blessing 8 years after that. For 3 decades, Michael had poured his heart into being the best husband and father he could be. He'd missed countless business opportunities to attend dance recitals. He'd stayed up nights helping with science projects, walked all 3 girls down imaginary aisles during their pretend weddings, and wiped away tears over broken hearts and failed exams. Every sacrifice had felt worth it. His family was his legacy, his purpose, his reason for breathing. The suspicion had started innocuously enough 3 months earlier. Michael had been unable to sleep one night and had gone downstairs for water when he heard Linda's voice, low and intimate, speaking on the phone in the garden. The way she laughed, a sound he hadn't heard directed at him in years, made something twist in his gut. When he'd asked about it the next morning, she dismissed it as a college friend going through a divorce. Then came the charity gala. Michael had been standing with Linda when a man approached them, tall, silver-haired, distinguished. David Morrison, a real estate developer. Linda's face had gone pale for just a fraction of a second before she recovered, introducing them with a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. Michael had noticed how David's gaze lingered on his wife, familiar and knowing. "We went to college together," Linda had explained later, too quickly. "Haven't seen him in years." But Michael had started paying attention after that. He noticed old photo albums where David appeared in the background of parties and gatherings throughout their marriage. He saw the way Linda's phone would light up with messages she'd quickly dismiss. Small things, perhaps explainable individually, but together they formed a pattern that made his chest tight with anxiety. The DNA test had been Melissa's idea, ironically enough. She'd mentioned doing one for fun, to trace their ancestry. Michael had laughed it off initially, but the seed was planted. When his doctor suggested genetic screening for hereditary health issues, Michael saw his opportunity. He'd submitted his sample and Clara's, just to establish a baseline, he'd told himself. Just to quiet the paranoid voice that had been growing louder in his head. Now, sitting in his study with the results, that voice was screaming. Michael's hands shook as he pulled out 2 more envelopes he'd been too afraid to open. Melissa's test, Emma's test. He'd sent them in weeks ago, using hair samples from their brushes, telling himself he was being crazy, that he'd laugh about this paranoia someday. He tore open Melissa's envelope first. Not a match. Emma's was last. His baby girl, the one who still called him every Sunday, who just finished college and was talking about graduate school. The daughter who'd inherited his love of old movies and terrible puns. Not a match. Michael made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. None of them. 30 years, and none of them were his. He sat in the darkness of his study, and for the first time in his adult life, Michael Thompson truly broke. The next week passed in a fog. Michael went through the motions, work, dinner, polite conversation, while feeling like he was watching his life from outside his body. He studied his daughter's faces, searching for any resemblance to himself he might have imagined all these years. Clara had his mother's eyes, he'd always thought, but now he saw they were exactly like David Morrison's. Melissa's laugh, which he'd been so proud to share, it was Linda's, not his. And Emma, his Emma, had that dimple in her left cheek that he'd thought came from his side of the family. But his sister didn't have it. His father didn't have it. It had always been a mystery until now. Michael hired a private investigator, hating himself even as he did it. The report came back within days, and it was worse than he'd imagined. Linda and David had been involved since before the marriage, an on and off affair that had apparently never truly ended. David was married too, with his own family across town. There were photos of Linda and David at hotels, restaurants, even at David's lake house. The affair had spanned decades, parallel to Michael's entire marriage. But the detail that destroyed him was in the investigator's final note. The daughters appeared to be aware of the relationship. Subject Clara was observed meeting with David Morrison privately on 3 occasions. Subject Melissa was present at 1 meeting. The youngest, Emma, has been seen in Morrison's company as well. They knew. His daughters knew their mother was cheating, knew that David was their real father, and they'd never said a word. How many times had he sat across from them at dinner, sharing his day, asking about theirs, while they hid this massive truth from him? How many times had they looked him in the eye and called him dad, knowing it was a lie? Michael chose a Friday evening for the confrontation. The girls were all home for the weekend. Clara visiting from a city where she worked in marketing, Melissa from her graduate program 2 hours away, and Emma still living at home while she figured out her next steps. They just finished dinner, one of Linda's elaborate meals that had once represented everything warm and loving about their home. "I need everyone in the living room," Michael said, his voice calm despite the hurricane raging inside him. "Now!" Something in his tone made them comply without question. They gathered on the sofas, Linda on one side, the three daughters on the other. Michael stood in front of them, feeling like a prosecutor about to present evidence that would shatter lives, including his own. 30 years, he began, pulling the DNA result from his pocket. 30 years I've loved this family with everything I had. I built my entire life around you all. Every decision, every sacrifice, every moment of joy, it was all for my family. "Michael, what's this about?" Linda asked, but her voice wavered. "These are DNA test results," Michael continued, his voice breaking. "Clara, you're not my biological daughter." He watched her face drain of color. "Melissa, neither are you." Melissa's hand flew to her mouth. "And Emma, my baby girl, you're not mine either." The silence that followed was deafening. Michael watched the emotions play across their faces, shock, fear, guilt. But not one of them looked surprised. "You knew," he whispered, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. "You all knew." Linda stood up, reaching for him. "Michael, please, let me explain." "Explain." His voice rose, years of suppressed emotion finally breaking free. "Explain what, Linda? That you've been sleeping with David Morrison for 30 years? That you let me raise his children while he played happy family with his own wife? That every moment of my life has been a lie?" "Dad, please," Clara started, but Michael cut her off. "Don't." His fingers shook as he pointed at her. "Don't call me that. You knew. You've known, haven't you? How long?" Clara's eyes filled with tears, but she said nothing. "How long?" Michael roared, and all three daughters flinched. It was Melissa who finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Since I was 16, I found some letters. Mom made me promise not to tell." "You were 16, Michael repeated, his voice hollow. "That was 8 years ago. 8 years of knowing, of watching me love you all, and you said nothing." "We didn't want to hurt you," Emma said, tears streaming down her face. "Dad, please, we love you." "Love?" Michael laughed bitterly. "You don't betray someone you love. You don't lie to their face every single day for years. You don't watch them sacrifice everything for a family that was never even theirs and stay silent." If you're watching this and feeling the weight of this betrayal, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment with your thoughts, because this story is about to get even more devastating. Linda stepped forward again. "Michael, I never meant for it to happen. David and I, we have history. But I loved you too. I do love you. The girls love you. You're their father in every way that matters." "Every way except the truth," Michael shot back. "Every way except biology. Every way except honesty. You made me a fool. Linda, for 30 years, you made me a fool. And you let he choked on the word. "You let these girls help you do it." "We were protecting you," Clara said, standing up. "Mom was going to tell you eventually." "Eventually?" Michael's laugh was harsh. "When? At my funeral? Would you have told me then? Or would you let me die believing the lie?" "This isn't fair," Clara said, her voice rising. "You're acting like we conspired against you. We were just trying to keep the family together." "The family?" Michael stared at his eldest daughter, at David's daughter, and felt something inside him die. "There is no family, Clara. There never was. It was all pretend, all performance. I was just the fool paying the bills while your real father got to play hero in the shadows." "That's not true," Melissa sobbed. "You are our father. You raised us, you loved us. Based on a lie." Michael shouted. Every moment was tainted by deception. Every "I love you," every Father's Day card, every time he called me Dad, knowing the truth, it was all poisoned. Emma stood up, her face blotchy from crying. "So what? You're just going to throw us away? 30 years means nothing because of biology." "You threw me away," Michael said quietly, and his calm was more devastating than his anger had been. "The moment you chose to protect her lie instead of telling me the truth, you chose. Not me. You." He walked to the stairs and grabbed the suitcase he packed earlier. Linda rushed after him, grabbing his arm. "Michael, please don't do this. We can work through this. Counseling, whatever you need. We can fix this." Michael looked at his wife's face, still beautiful, still the face he'd woken up next to for 3 decades. And he felt nothing but emptiness. "You can't fix 30 years of betrayal with counseling, Linda. You can't undo the fact that every intimate moment we shared, you were thinking of him. You can't erase that our daughters, his daughters, looked me in the eye and chose your lies over my right to know the truth about my own life." "Where will you go?" Emma asked, her voice small. "Somewhere far away from here," Michael said. He looked at each of them one last time, memorizing faces he'd loved his entire adult life. "Somewhere I can figure out who I am when I'm not living a lie." "Dad, Please, Emma whispered. I'm not your dad, Michael said, and walked out the door. The next weeks were a blur of hotel rooms and lawyer consultations. Linda called constantly, leaving voicemails that ranged from desperate apologies to angry accusations that he was abandoning his family. The girls texted, emailed, even showed up at his office. Michael ignored them all. He was a ghost, going through the motions of existence while trying to process a grief that had no name. It wasn't death, they were all still alive, but it was the death of everything he believed in. His lawyer informed him that legally, he was still the girl's father. He'd raised them, supported them, and the law recognized that relationship regardless of biology. He could choose to maintain it or walk away, but financially, he had obligations. Michael arranged generous trusts for all three girls. He wouldn't punish them financially for their mother's sins and their own silence, but he couldn't look at them. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The divorce papers were filed. Linda fought it at first, then seemed to realize the futility. She destroyed something that couldn't be repaired. Michael was methodical in the division of assets, fair to the point of generosity, wanting nothing except to be free of the whole tangled mess. 1 month after he left, Emma showed up at his new apartment unannounced. Michael opened the door to find his youngest daughter. No, David's youngest daughter, standing there with red-rimmed eyes and a letter in her hands. I'm not staying, she said before he could speak. I just need you to read this. Please. She held out the letter, and after a moment, Michael took it. Emma turned and walked away, and Michael closed the door, staring at the envelope in his hands. Inside, Emma's handwriting covered 3 pages, shaky and tear-stained. Dad, it began, and Michael almost threw it away right there. But something made him keep reading. I know I don't have a right to call you that anymore, but I don't know what else to say. I need you to know the truth. All of it, even though it doesn't excuse anything. Mom told us about David when I was 12. Clara and Melissa already knew, but she sat me down and explained that she loved 2 men, and that David was our biological father, but you were our real father because you chose us every day. She made it sound romantic, like some kind of beautiful, complicated love story. I believed her because I was 12 and I didn't know better. As I got older, I understood it wasn't beautiful. It was betrayal. But by then, what could I do? Tell you and watch our family explode? I was a coward. We all were. We chose the comfortable lie over the hard truth, and I hate myself for it. Clara justified it by saying you seemed happy, so why ruin it? Melissa stayed quiet because she was afraid of confrontation. And me? I told myself I'd tell you someday when the time was right. But there's never a right time to destroy someone's world. David tried to be part of our lives, but we never let him be our father. Not really. You were Dad. You were the one who taught me to ride a bike, who stayed up with me when I had nightmares, who helped me with math homework even though you hate math. David was just this man on the periphery who bought us expensive gifts and made Mom smile in ways that felt wrong. I won't ask for your forgiveness because I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that we did love you. We do love you. That was never a lie. We were selfish and cowardly, but our love for you was real, even if we showed it in the worst possible way by staying silent. You deserved better than all of us. You deserve a wife who was faithful and daughters who were brave enough to tell you the truth. You deserved 30 years of real love, not this twisted version we gave you. I'm dud. I'm so sorry. Michael read the letter 3 times, then carefully folded it and placed it in his desk drawer. He didn't call Emma back. He didn't reach out to any of them. The apology was probably sincere, but it didn't change anything. Sorry doesn't give you back 30 years. Sorry doesn't erase the betrayal or heal the wound of knowing the people you loved most in the world chose to deceive you rather than trust you with the truth. 6 months later, a journalist doing a piece on complicated family dynamics tracked Michael down. He agreed to an anonymous interview, hoping that maybe his story could help someone else recognize the signs of deception he'd missed. The hardest part, Michael told the journalist, isn't that they weren't biologically mine. If Linda had told me the truth at the beginning, that she was pregnant with another man's child but wanted to build a life with me anyway, maybe we could have worked through it. Biology doesn't make a family, love does. But they took away my choice. They decided for me, year after year, that I didn't deserve to know the truth about my own life. And when the girls found out, they made the same choice. They decided their comfort was more important than my right to truth. That's what I can't forgive. Not the biology, but the betrayal. The knowing looks they must have shared, the secrets kept, the way they let me make a fool of myself, loving a family that was never really mine. The journalist asked if he'd ever reconcile with them. Michael was quiet for a long time. I don't know, he finally said. Some things, once broken, can't be fixed. They didn't just break my trust, they broke me. And I'm not sure the person I'm becoming wants any connection to the person I was, the fool who didn't see what was right in front of him. The story ended up running in a major magazine, anonymized but detailed. Michael heard through mutual friends that Linda and the girls read it and knew immediately it was about them. Clara apparently called it unfair, a character assassination. Melissa refused to comment. Emma reportedly sobbed through the entire article. Michael didn't feel vindicated. He didn't feel anything except tired. A year after leaving, Michael sat in a small cafe in a coastal town 3 states away, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. He'd sold the business, taken early retirement, and was living a simple, quiet life. No wife, no children, no family drama. Just him and the ocean and books and long walks on the beach. His phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Happy birthday, Dad. I hope wherever you are, you found peace." Michael stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it without responding. He wasn't their dad. That man had died the night he learned the truth. This new version of himself was still being built, still figuring out who he was when he wasn't defined by a family that was never his. Sometimes late at night, he thought about them. He wondered if Clara ever felt genuine remorse, or if she still believed protecting the lie was justified. He wondered if Melissa's guilt ate at her, or if she'd managed to rationalize it away. And Emma, his Emma who'd written that letter, he wondered if she'd ever forgive herself. But mostly, he tried not to wonder at all. Before we close this devastating chapter, make sure you hit that like button if this story moved you, and drop a comment telling us what you would have done in Michael's situation. Your engagement helps us bring more real, raw stories like this to light. The truth, Michael had learned, was simple and brutal. Sometimes the people you love most destroy you in silence. They smile at your jokes while hiding knives behind their backs. They accept your love while knowing they're giving you lies in return. And when the truth finally comes out, they'll cry and apologize and say they never meant to hurt you. As if decades of deception happened by accident. As if betrayal was something that just happened to them rather than a choice they made every single day. Michael Thompson had spent 30 years building a life on sand. And when the truth washed it all away, he discovered something unexpected. Emptiness felt better than beautiful lies. Loneliness was easier to bear than betrayal, dressed up as love. And sometimes, freedom meant walking away from everything you thought you wanted and starting over with nothing but the truth to keep you company. He was 58 years old, alone, and had lost everything he'd spent his life building. But for the first time in 30 years, Michael Thompson knew exactly where he stood, on solid ground, finally free from the weight of other people's lies. And some days that was enough.